My name is Noelia Stephanie Lobo. I say that because I have the Spanish and the American name. I am originally from Honduras and I've moved here in 2008. I became vegan in 2019 after watching a slaughterhouse video that prompted me to go vegan that moment and become an activist in that time as well. I am the development. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can just feel eyes. So it's just I'm so sorry. I am the philanthropist specialist and volunteer coordinator. I've been here since 2021 and I am loving it. So veganism is, to me, not harming any of my friends and any animals, whether that's entertainment, whether that's what I eat, what I wear, fashion statement or whatever it is that I'm using. It's, I guess, the process of eliminating as much as you can, where you can. Obviously, I still drive a car, but I'm going to limit as much as I can.
What are some common questions you get when people find out you're vegan?
So I'm Hispanic. I was born in Honduras, so I'm Honduran. And the thing that I get the most is, how do you deal with the Hispanic culture side of it? Because we eat, the Hispanic culture eats a lot of cow and a lot of pig. One of the things is, how do I handle that? And it's hard. It's difficult to, not just change myself, but also change how I view things as far as from my Hispanic culture. Another thing is where do I get my protein from? And, the ice cream that or comments that are the ice cream that I tried, the vegan ice cream that I tried is nothing compared to the real kind.
What have you noticed different since becoming vegan?
Yeah, so going vegan kind of changed me physically and mentally. I had chronic migraines all the time. I was lactose intolerant. Who knew? I had, constant IBS problems as well. And as soon as I went vegan, the diet change, all of that itself really helped my migraines. I hardly ever get any. My IBS has lessened a lot, so much so that my doctor was completely surprised that he didn't see me as much anymore. It has changed my energy level as well. I used to be a huge napper, which I still love my naps, but I don't feel like I need to constantly have to take that reboot all the time. I have a lot of more energy now.
What are the most important reasons for you to be vegan now?
Oh, my friends. And by that I mean, the animals that I surround myself with. They're the reason I went vegan. They're the reason I'm going to stay vegan forever, because I see no reason to harm someone that has feelings and someone that I don't need, to harm. They're the drive for everything that I do now, because it's for them that I speak up and it's for them that I work for, and it's for them that I do activism with, and it's for them that I choose the lifestyle that I'm in.
Why is it important for others to be vegan?
To not cause harm. The reason I think we should all be vegan is to reduce our harm and to stop exploiting animals. It's also amazing for our environment. We're not having to use so much land. Animals are victims of what we have made them. We've made them the victims. They wouldn't be in this situation if we didn't breathe them into existence. We wouldn't be causing so much harm to our environment and to Earth if it wasn't for us. Choosing veganism is just reducing all of that. And it's also taking away pain, from the victim's perspective, because they don't want to be harmed. They don't want to be food. They don't want to, they're not there for us.
So how practical is it? Let's paint a picture for how practical it is, because there's so many food options. Isn't there a lot of diversity that you could just do instead?
The Hispanic culture, so I guess I'm trying to think about how my dad views it. So I come from a dairy farmer's life. My grandfather was a dairy farmer. My dad is a dairy farmer. So I guess I'm the dairy farmer's daughter. Everything revolves around animals, who you're eating, how you're cooking it, because Hispanics are all about food. And I mean, most of us are, but Hispanics in general, like anything you do, it's celebrating with food. It's celebrating with, café con leche, or coffee with milk. And that culture revolves around the victims.
How could that shift into the plentiful abundance of plant foods? And how can they maintain that culture still?
Yeah, so I mean, tofu can be made into anything. We have so many vegan options, and so much more than 2019 when I went vegan, and now more options are popping up more than ever. I mean, Impossible and Beyond are there. The vegan options that are out there can be made into everything that we have, as far as like Hispanic food. One of the things that is really popular in the Honduran culture is like enchiladas, and that's basically ground cow, and then you have your toppings all like that. It's like a Mexican tostada. It's so easy to just switch it from having the victim on your plate and on that enchilada and putting like Impossible or Beyond on it. It's a different thing, of course, but it's really easy to change it. It's really easy to find practical things to do it, or even put black beans on it instead of just ground beef on it. It doesn't change who we are. It doesn't change our traditions. It just changes who we're harming. We're no longer harming someone whenever you go vegan. So it's easier to go to bed. It's easier to teach your kids things because you're not, being the cause of someone else's pain. It does not change who we are. Who I am is still inside of me, and who my parents taught me to be, like the culture I grew up, is still inside of me. It's still who I am. It's just now I'm thinking, oh, I don't need to harm that cow. I don't need to harm, that pig that is outside right now and that loves, belly rubs or something. Like it's unnecessary.
What would be the most powerful message or thing you could say that might actually reach people in your culture, and maybe say it in Spanish? So say it in English and then Spanish.
Okay.
So first say it in English so I know what you're saying.
Okay.
And you say cognitive dissonance.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a plea for them to consider,
Yeah.
And how might you word that in English first?
Our food does not define us. Just because we're not eating meat or cows does not mean we are less of humans or less empowered or less Hispanic. We are not less Hispanic.
How do you encourage others to be vegan, and what have you found to be most effective?
My favorite way of advocacy is conversation. As vegans, sometimes we're viewed as like purist, and having conversation connects you with that person, whether it's a pre-vegan, because to me, everyone's just a pre-vegan. One of my friends taught me that, and I love saying that now. It's about connecting with the human side of people. I feel like that is one of the most essential ways of having others, come to fruition of what the reality of the animal agriculture is. And also seeing what really happens sometimes. Like, that's what really got me, is seeing a slaughterhouse video of how they were really treated. Because even though I grew up in a dairy farm, like, I had absolutely no idea of, what happened. I was kept in the dark of that, from that information, and I just did not know. Even as a female, like, I should know that milk doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
So when you're encouraging it, like, how do you bring this conversation up, though? Or do you just wait for somebody to kind of give you a sign?
Sometimes it just happens naturally. Like, I can be at a Publix line and just comment, about how I love what you pick, like, oh, that would be great. I don't know if you've ever tried this with that, but that would be great. Also, you should try like the oat milk. It's actually buy one, get one free right now. It's easy just to point it out. Sometimes I'm just, my fiance and I do this where we're just walking by and just commenting about how great like the vegan options are now, and how even like corporate places like fast foods are bringing it in, just reminding people that there are other options. Yeah, the conversations just sometimes strike up. Other times it could just be the t-shirt I'm wearing, so the t-shirt itself becomes the conversation starter. So I definitely encourage my family a little more hardcore, but when we're at the grocery store, Pete and I will be striking up a conversation about how, oh my gosh, like we just saw this video and, it made us rethink of the product that we're consuming, and where it made us think about who we're eating and who we're, putting on our plates. And it's like so mind-boggling how we've been doing this and we've never thought about it. And yeah, like now I'm like thinking, oh, I should go vegan too. It's just comfort, just little snippets that make people like curious as they're walking by. Like, oh, they're talking about changing their lifestyle. I don't know. Yeah, it's simple. Sometimes even just like because I have oat milk in my cart, someone will ask me, like, oh, I've heard about that. I've been wanting to try that. Is it good? Is it any good? And then the conversation goes from there. I think we're in a time now that more and more people are hearing about it. It's becoming more of a normalized thing. We're still not there yet because obviously we still have millions and millions of animals being killed, but I think now people are more open to it.
So it sounds like you wear veganism pretty loud.
Yeah, I do.
But in a fun way.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have t-shirts and hats and, just little hints of whatever I'm, wearing that kind of indicates, that I'm a vegan. And sometimes it can just be easily like, oh, I love kale, like something super simple like that. Kale is not my favorite food, but yeah, not all vegans eat kale, but yeah.
What shirt gets the most attention?
I have a shirt that says "Free the Animals," and I think sometimes because it has like a paw on it, I think some people think that it has to do with dogs. So that brings up a lot of conversation because they're like, "Oh, like what does your shirt mean? Like, is it cat or dog related?" And then it like goes and continues on from there, talking about it is for them, but it's also for all the farmed animals that are being tortured and abused and killed for our pleasure, or for a non-vegan's pleasure, I guess. But that's my favorite shirt right now, I think. Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of people that are worried about race, and then they think, how can you worry about animals when we got people suffering? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, we have people suffering, and while I do things about that as well, changing something as easy as what's on our plate, that can happen. Like that's a change that I do. That's something that's on my plate 3 times a day. So that's something I can do right now. It is all important. Every matter is important. I do not take the spotlight from anything else because humans are important, and humans are the reason that we have so many problems. Like humans is the reason why in Honduras we have so many political wars, and so many kids are starving. But it's also the reason why we need to work together to create more of a harmony. I think veganism brings that in a lot too, because it creates more of like a unified voice for the animals, which then is what we fight for at the same time.
It doesn't need to take away from other forms of activism. It could enhance them potentially.
Right, exactly, yeah. It just, because I think because I'm more aware of what happens in the animal agriculture, it makes me more aware of what happens to everything else. Because then I'm like, okay, well, I didn't know that this was happening in the dairy industry. Okay, so how much, like, what other stuff is out there that I'm completely unaware about? And it opens my eyes to a lot more things, which in that makes me an activist for a lot of other things as well.
I have heard some people say, especially in the African American or Black communities, that they are more of a victim due to animal agriculture than other races. Have you noticed that with the Hispanic population as well? Are they more of a victim with animal agriculture than maybe other people? Am I saying that right?
Because of where a lot of the slaughterhouses are, like I've seen this, it's in rural areas because they hide it away. It's in lower income areas, and thus bringing in a lot of like Hispanic people as well. I mean, there's studies all over. In fact, Mercy for Animals did one that it shows you the amount of abuse that goes into the slaughterhouses, and a lot of that, because it's in the lower income areas, it brings in a lot of different races in. And most of the times it's Hispanics. So a lot of Hispanics are undocumented in these rural and low income areas where the slaughterhouses are. When they go looking for work, a lot of slaughterhouses allow them to work there and take advantage of them and abuse them to a certain degree,
You almost can't be a civil rights activist or an environmentalist without being a vegan as well, because it's integral in all of that, isn't it?
As you're eating someone else's flesh, essentially, you are supporting the slavery that goes into animal agriculture, because the animals are being our slaves for our pleasure. And at the same time, we're supporting the abuse that goes into slaughterhouse workers. It all ties together. Environmental, human problems, poverty, all of it goes together hand in hand.
What kind of challenges did you have after going vegan? Was there any challenges that you might be able to share that might even help others anticipate that and avoid them or anything like that?
A lot of the challenges that came with me going vegan wasn't even like me personally, but it went like, oh my gosh, like as I went vegan, and my thought process was like, oh my gosh, so now what's my family gonna think? How in the world am I going to be able to sit down with my parents, and then like what's Thanksgiving and Christmas going to be like? That's such a struggle, and it is to this day, because they're not vegans as well. It's harder whenever you have a family that's not it's not vegan. They are supportive of my change, and they completely understand where I'm coming from, but for them, it's just a decision that I guess they've decided to make, and it's just harder for me to understand that. But that has been a struggle for me from day one. Changing my food, that was easy because I just decided that, I did not want to be part of someone else's suffering. But family and friends can be hard at times, and that's still something that I'm learning to do. But it's all about educating. And I think one day my family's going to get there, because I know the kind of people they are. So I know that they're on that pathway.
How do you deal with family when you go, like, do you visit family and then have to be around the food they're eating? And how does that make you feel, and how do you deal with that? And did they give you any kind of pressure, and how do you deal with that?
So I guess that comes with the Hispanic culture as well. We get teased a lot, and this was like even before veganism, but the veganism gets brought up a little bit more. So there is a slight like gesturing from, my family, my close family, and also my cousins as well, that just can't fathom living without eating cow or without having like the real milk, as what they call it. And that is such a struggle, because it's like, I know who they are, I know the kind of people they are, and yet they're picking at that. But thankfully they understand, and after very long conversations, they are able to respect my decision enough to where they won't bring it around me. They won't eat my friends around me as much. So it's still a everyday struggle with them. Sometimes we're on the phone and they're like, oh yeah, we're about to go eat. And they bring up where they're about to go eat. And it's hard. As being also a caretaker. I was so excited that my family was finally going to come down here and I was going to be able to like have them one-on-one with the animals and get to like really see their stories and like hear their stories and get to actually see who I'm talking about. Because they constantly hear about my everyday stuff, you know, so it was just so exciting to have them here. But because I'm vegan and because everyone here, my household, is vegan, I do not allow any non-vegan items in here. In the Hispanic culture, me telling my father not to bring or not to do certain things was hard and very difficult. He did not take it very well. Again, he respected it. But that is another struggle that I had to go through.
Did you feel like they connected with the animals in a way that might have been a baby step in the right direction?
Yeah, so my sister is 21 and she's in that point right now that she's exploring new ideas. And that with her coming here, she got to see who I was talking about. So she got to see Lionel. She got to see Amos, the piglet. She got to see where our food comes from, because even though I grew up on a farm and I haven't been there in years, and even though she grew up on a farm, she hasn't been there in years, but getting to see who is on the plates, you know, like who we decide to eat, really brought her like a step forward so much more that even she has decided to just not drink any more milk, any cow's milk. So now she's just drinking oat milk. So it has brought her a lot closer to veganism. Connecting with and seeing who you're bringing to the table is definitely one of the best ways to advocate for veganism.
So you said relationships are hard beyond family, but it looks like you've made some pretty good friends in the vegan world. So maybe that offsets some of the challenges.
Before veganism, I mean, we had friends, but gosh, the vegan community is so close-knit, and it's amazing because you know someone here that will know someone from, you know, wherever you lived before. It's so awesome because we are really like here for the animals, each and every one of them. And we are all here for each other at the same time. And they have become such a pillar of, you know, like every time I'm struggling with my family, that they're there, like they're supportive. It has created such a community. Like vegans have united in a lot of ways like that, and they have become very fast friends. So yeah, it has definitely helped that I have a lot of vegan friends around me, surrounding me to help me, you know, sway my family, you know, give me a lot of other options that I could also use with them. But yeah, it's so nice to have that, someone covering my back like that as well.
Do you feel like your vegan friends are kind of different in any way than your non-vegan friends? Beyond just what they eat, is there a deeper connection with these types of people?
Yeah, I think because we all carry around the guilt of, you know, why didn't I go vegan before? And we all have that same guilt. So we all kind of understand, you know, that struggle. My pre-vegan friends don't really understand that because they don't see it as a problematic thing. They don't see, you know, what they're doing as a problem, or they choose to ignore that is what it is. Having vegan friends and having that community around me connects me more with who I am because they are more connected with each other, because they are more down to earth and realize that, you know, some things are just, you know, not what they seem. I think most of them are just more at peace with themselves. I think it is the root of it all. Once they realized the harm that they were causing, they changed themselves and they changed for the better. So thus causing more peace within them.
And to wrap that up, is that something that builds a stronger relationship with those kinds of friends as opposed to the kinds of friends you used to have?
Because we all understand each other, because they're more at peace, it creates more of a happier environment, I guess would be the thing. Yeah, you get to have a lot more experiences together that, you know, take you to new adventures and new stuff and are definitely more meaningful. Yes.
Do you think you could ever be with somebody that's not vegan though?
Most definitely not. I mean, I went vegan 3 days after my fiance went vegan. So I know it would have been a struggle for him if I wouldn't have gone vegan. But like, definitely looking at it now, if I would have gone vegan before him, it would be such a struggle, and it would be a strain on a relationship because, you know, it would be me fighting for my friends, and at the same time, it's just my significant other is just not, and that would be a hard no. I could not.
Do you have any regrets?
My regret is like I grew up in a dairy farm, and I didn't know the truth, and I regret every day not exploring that even more and not going vegan earlier. There's so many animals and so many lives that died because of me and because of the pleasure that I was getting from it. I wish I would have gone vegan before.
Why didn't you go vegan sooner?
I think to a degree I blinded myself from the truth. It was staring at me, but I was like ignoring it because I was bliss in my own ignorance, I guess. And until it like was staring me right in the face, until I saw a slaughterhouse video and I saw them crying out in pain, and I saw the moms, you know, screaming for their babies as they were being taken away, and I saw all that damage, and all of that was being caused by me. And I guess it just took it being slapped right into my face to be able to change.
A lot of people think, you know, like being really graphic isn't effective. It sounds like it was for you.
It definitely was the number one cause for me to go vegan. Learning more about veganism and getting to meet more people and realizing what the vegan community is really about really helped. But the graphics help because it creates, I don't even know how to describe it, this thing in you that just makes you instantly like not like yourself because you did that. That was what you caused that. I caused that by choosing, you know, cow on my taco that night, or cow, you know, like a burger, you know, that day. I caused that pain, and seeing that really brought everything, you know, brought me into tears and brought so much emotion into that it just changed me in that moment.
Prior to going vegan, did you ever think there's no way I could go vegan?
Yeah, so it was a running joke with my fiance and I that in order for me to be at like my healthiest, and for like if we had any kids, you know, I would be I'd be vegan. He'd be like, no, we'd only be eating vegan stuff because you need to be healthy, because the baby would need to be healthy. And he'd always say, like, you wouldn't eat any meat, you wouldn't eat any milk. And he's like, it was just change. And I would be like, you're insane. Like, I'm not going to change my diet. That's like ridiculous. I'm not going to. I love my steak, is what I would say. I love to do this. I love to eat that, completely unaware of how easy it was. But oh my gosh, yeah, that was a running joke between us that I would go vegan and I would completely think he was insane. Well, he was telling me that I would go vegan, and as soon as I became pregnant, he wasn't even vegan yet. Like, this was all pre-veganism. And I don't think we even like labeled it as vegan. It would just be like, you would be eating healthy, and it would just be fruits and vegetables. Kale all the time is what he would say. And now that was before we opened our minds to it, before we realized how ridiculous we sounded.
Do you worry about any specific nutrients?
No. Something we get asked a lot is like, oh, you won't get your protein or your iron. Well, no, we eat, you know, food that we need to eat to be able to do it. And it's so easy. Half of the stuff that we eat, the black beans that someone like our Hispanic culture eats every day mostly, as protein. I don't have to worry about that because I get it all from plants and all from the earth.
Do you take any supplements?
I mean, I take just as much vitamins as I did before. Just now I got to watch, you know, what comes in it, because I don't want to be eating it or consuming a product that would have my friends on it.
How do you suggest others get started?
Just replace what you have. All of the foods that you're eating can be translated into any vegan stuff. You can still have your oatmeal in the morning, your café con leche in the morning. Just replace the leche part, the milk part, with the vegan milk. And that can be soy milk, coconut milk, oat milk, like there's so many options out there. The switch is easy. It's just a matter of you realizing that there are victims involved and just changing it and realizing that.
So do you have a favorite quote you like to share?
Pete, my fiance and I, we constantly have like these massively long conversations in the car rides. So much so that I almost think we've always talked about doing some kind of podcast or something about it, because we get into the most profound conversations. And we both ended up making up this quote that, I don't know if anyone else has made it, but a lot of our cultural problems, a lot of the world problems is caused by humans. So we like to say is humans are the solution to human problems. And we are the ones that are causing a lot of, distress and a lot of harm to others. So we can also be the solution to that change.
Is there anything about vegans that you'd like to maybe see changed or done differently?
There's no reason to bicker about ridiculous stuff. A lot of the new options that are coming out beyond chicken at KFC is looked at as, like a problematic thing. Like, well, that's not the solution, or like lab-grown meat is not the solution. Well, it's a step in the right direction. Like my boss says, Aaron says, it doesn't have to be black or white. It's all in the change, and it's all thinking about the victims. It's all thinking about the animals. So we got to, just always remember that. Yeah, we don't need to separate ourselves from each other. Like, we're already a small community as it is. And there's no need to separate each other. There's no need for any small differences like that to separate the community.
Share what foods you like to eat every day.
Ooh. Okay, so my favorite ultimate food, I think, is ramen. And that is one of my favorite things. And believe it or not, most ramens are already vegan because they put tofu in it. It's just a matter of changing the broth and putting vegetable bouillon on it instead of any of other stuff. But that's my favorite. But I am a chocolate lover. So anything that is chocolate cake, a chocolate donut, chocolate bar, anything with chocolate, I'm in. Completely my favorite thing.
And what are like typical things you might eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Overnight oats would definitely be a breakfast thing. And then somewhere among there, I'd probably be eating some sweets, whether it's like the donut we got the night before. Lunch, I like enchiladas is something that I eat a lot as well. And that's the Honduran Enchilada, so it's like an open, I think it's like a Mexican tostada. In Honduras, we call it an enchilada, so it's like open. It's not wrapped, but that's one of our favorite things. How
do you make that? What do you do on that?
Oh, so a Honduran enchilada is basically a fried corn tortilla, and then you have your protein, which would be Beyond or Impossible, or you can do black beans. And then you have cabbage with salt and pepper on it, and lime juice. And then you have chismol, which is like pico de gallo. It's essentially the same thing. Salt, vinegar, lime on it as well. Then you garnish it with vegan Parmesan, and it's so good. And yeah, some vegan cream as well. Crema is so good. And then at dinner, it just changes. Give me my ramen. Such a comfort food for me. And black bean soup. And it's so good. So yeah, ramen is basically broth with tofu and bok choy, onion, corn, basically anything you can think of. But yeah, it's ramen itself. I think it's just the noodle. So you just whatever noodle and then your soup base.
What if a doctor told you you had to eat animals? What would you do?
Change doctors. I would not. I wouldn't. Whether it was a doctor or anyone else telling me, I would not be anything but vegan. I'm not trying to cause harm. So I would not be able to accept that answer.
Are you going to raise your children vegan?
In the event that we ever have kids, they would be vegan. Yeah, most definitely.
How much of your diet is raw?
I can eat like massaged kale with dressing.
You eat salad
I
every
eat
day?
lots of salads. I want to say like a good 30-40% of my diet is raw because I eat lots of salads and a lot of, fruits. So I have a lot of options in there.
Is vegan food expensive? Is eating that way, does it have to be expensive? A lot of people think it is.
Vegan food is not expensive. I mean, you can make it as expensive as you want. I could go to a fancy restaurant right now and have a very expensive vegan plate, but I can also just have an enchilada, which is super, super cheap to make. I could make ramen, which is super, super cheap. I could have a salad, which is cheap. It can be as expensive as you want and as affordable as you want.
Do you think we'll ever see a vegan world?
I definitely have hopes that we will see it. Probably not while I'm alive, unfortunately. We're in that process of getting there, I think. More and more people are hearing about even the word veganism or vegan. So I think we're heading in that direction. I hope I get to see it, and I do think we will get into a vegan world.
How might your life been different if you were raised vegan?
Oh, everything would have changed. Maybe I wouldn't have had chronic migraines from the beginning because I would have been so much healthier. And that's not to say that, just because you're a vegan, you're healthy. But it's just, it leads you down a pathway that makes you think more about what you are consuming and who you're consuming, that it just makes you consider your health a little bit more, I think. Wouldn't feel like 20 some years of guilt and that weight on my shoulders that I walk around with. I wouldn't have to struggle with that. It would have been so much easier, I think.
Do you ever wish you were raised vegan?
I wish I was raised vegan every day. I wish I never would have drank any cow's milk and never would have hurt any of my friends. Yeah, every day. That's a constant thought.
What would a vegan world look like?
A vegan world would look like farm sanctuary looks like. Filled with happy animals and not being hurt or not being there for our entertainment and not be there for our consumption and food pleasure. It would be something that is more peaceful.
Is there anything you would like to share that we didn't cover?
You are the change. You make a difference. Sometimes even as a vegan, it sometimes feels like, oh, well, what difference am I making? But every single person is the change. All of us can, reduce the pain. All of us can, end someone's suffering just purely by what we choose to eat and what we choose to wear, because they suffer just like us. They love their babies just like just like my mom loves me. A cow is just as much a friend and it's just as much a lovable creature as your dog, as your cat. So just remember that.